I'll try this again. Y'all, we had a special treat a while ago, and we have another treat today. As y'all well know, she's amazing at filling in when we need her. Miss Brandice Wilson is here to talk to us today.
Good morning. It feels like a really early morning. I want to first thank everybody for Life Festival yesterday, and I hope that you all got to come out and participate and enjoy the day. It was such a beautiful day. It far exceeded any expectation I could have put on it. And it was just beautiful to see this little bitty idea that we had got, that God just grew into something that was just amazing. And so I want to thank you for all of the volunteers who helped put that together. You put a lot of work and commitment into something, and I think our community really, really loved what we did in Canton yesterday. So thank you so much. This morning, I'm going to still talk to you about some labels because, of course, it is something that I still struggle with. And so that's the only thing that I know how to share with you is something that I'm going through myself, that I'm dealing with. And I hope that through my story and the things that I share with you, you're able to relate in some way to your own story and that it helps for you also. So I am going to start out by reading, which I hope I don't read too fast or too slow. So anyways, but I'm going to read out of Matthew 18. This is a story that I find very impactful for myself. It's the story of the unforgiving servant. Some of you may know it. But it's really, there's a few key words in there that are really huge to me, or maybe they're phrases. And so I just want to share it with you. And so I hope you'll give me a moment to just read to you guys. So at this time, Peter is asking Jesus how many times he's supposed to forgive somebody. And, Jesus is responding, and then he tells him, the story, and he says, "Therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. A talent has a value of about 20 years worth of wages. So that sounds like a lot. And so I'm afraid for this guy. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and his children and all that he had in order for payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, 'Have patience with me, and I will pay you everything.' So he's begging him to please forgive this huge debt that he has. And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him." So he forgives his debt of this huge amount. And I think this servant must be so excited because he's been forgiven. His wife and his family and all of his belongings don't have to be sold at this point. So I'm imagining his joy that he has. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And that has the value of about 1 day's wage. He seized him and he began to choke him, saying, "Pay what you owe." So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, "Have patience with me and I will pay you." That sounds a little familiar. He refused. And he went and he put him in prison until he could pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you?" And in anger, his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all of his debt. So also, my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. I think that story speaks to my heart for many reasons, but I want to share with you part of my story of where this comes from. This servant owed a huge amount of money, and yet he was forgiven. And instead of taking what he received and giving that away, he just treated somebody else the way he was originally being treated. And I find something wrong with that. But then God shows me, do you do that, Brandice? So that's where it's coming from, and I want to talk to you about the labels that we wear, that I wear, of unforgiven and forgiven. Do we wear a label that says, I am unforgiven? And then do we wear that label so long that we become a label maker, and we start to give that label to somebody, and we decide that they're unforgiven? So the only thing I ever know how to share with you is my own story about Chris and I, and a lot of you know kind of some of it, but I'll just fill you in if you don't. Chris and I had a really rough marriage. We were at that place where we were pretty much done. See, Chris and I got together when we were 16. We were in high school, and I know a lot of you teenagers are in here, and it seems like this is it. This is life. And oh my gosh, everything that is happening right now is forever. Oh my gosh, I wish I would have known now, a little at 30, now that I'm a grown-up, what I could have known at 16. But anyway, so Chris and I, we got together when we were 16, and we did the whole high school teenage thing, you know? I mean, you're kids. And so we started hurting each other, not because we necessarily wanted to, but just stuff happened. Well, later on in life, we started to get to this place where our marriage was just struggling. Chris was an alcoholic. He was addicted, and I was bitter, and I was angry. And so those are all kinds of labels that I wore for a long time. And I was like Mary Poppins. I had this little trick bag that I would go and pull out these little, tricks from when we were 16. And you did this. I was really, really good at pulling all this stuff out of this giant bag that I carried around. Anyways, so we are at this place in our marriage, and I'm holding all these hurts over Chris, and he's just continuing to mess up because he's an alcoholic, and he's just causing all these problems. And so I'm just keeping a tally constantly of everything he does so that I can use it for a day that I need to be angry. So, like I said, we were at a really bad place, and just destruction was all around us. And it was just becoming so heavy. And we finally got to this place where I just couldn't take it anymore. And I decided I was done. And I was leaving. And I was just tired of this mess. And I felt like if I could just get rid of this mess and move on, then things would just be great. At that time, of course, I didn't realize all the labels that I had picked up and all of the things that I was carrying around. And I didn't realize that just because I left, I was still me, and I still had my labels, and I was still going to have my struggles. So there came a time when I had to start getting ready to make choices. And those choices weren't easy, but I did decide to leave. Although when I left, it didn't sit right. It didn't feel right. But I didn't know why. Can you relate to any of this? The unforgiveness that you have towards somebody? And maybe it's not a spouse. That's just the only thing that I can share with you about so passionately. But maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's a different kind of relationship. Or maybe it's all of your relationships. Maybe there's some sort of unforgiveness that is there, that is just in that background, just keeping you from complete happiness. So, I get to a place where I have to make a choice, and I have to decide, am I going to forgive Chris, or am I going to forget Chris? And while all around me it sounded like it would be really easy to just forget him, minus the fact that I had a kid with him, and so that was going to complicate things, but I thought I could just forget all this. I wasn't understanding, though, that if I forget him, I wasn't going to forget the hurt that he had caused. I wasn't going to forget the pain that I had experienced. In fact, I was going to take that hurt, that pain, that anger, and that bitterness, and I was going to carry it to another relationship. Meaning I was going to give somebody else a label. It could be little things that you harbor this unforgiveness about. It could be somebody cut you off at the red light when it wasn't their turn, and then you go into crazy road rage because you've got this unforgiveness that's just brewing on the surface and it's ready to explode on somebody. So I think that it comes to a time that you can't give away what you don't have. You can't give away what you have not fully received. And so I get to the part of my story where one night, the God who loves me gave me a moment to show me how much he loves me. In this moment, God showed me all these things that I had done to others, said to others. They were little things here, little things there. I might not have even known that it hurt anyone or that it made anyone angry. But he allowed me to see these things. And then the greatest thing happened. And he showed me that if I would be willing to receive it, he wanted to forgive me for everything. He wanted to love me totally and completely, in a pure way that we can't describe. All I had to do was receive that forgiveness and fill it with his love. And so in this moment, that's what I did. I received this flood of forgiveness and love that felt so amazing. And I wanted to share it. I wanted to give it away. I wanted somebody else to feel this feeling that I had just taken this label off and I didn't have to wear this label anymore. And I wanted to give it to somebody. I wanted you to feel what it felt like. And so I had a choice. I had this man who I loved with everything, but he had hurt me. And I had a choice. I can give him this gift and I can show him what Jesus just showed me. Because see, Jesus, he forgave me, knowing that today I'm gonna mess up at some point. I'm gonna hurt somebody at some point, but he did it anyway. And so I made the choice and I decided I will not forget Chris. I choose to forgive him. And so I did. And I knew that forgiving him was gonna take a little bit of work on my part, because when I made that choice to forgive him, I couldn't go back to my Mary Poppins bag and I couldn't pick up those past hurts, those past disappointments. They were done. That bag was closed and I was moving forward. I'm not saying that you forgive and become oblivious to certain things, because see, Chris was still an alcoholic. He hadn't received his transformation yet. Things hadn't changed for him. but that didn't mean that I was going to treat him like a prisoner. So I forgave him, and God allowed me to start treating him differently. God allowed me to see him differently. Now, that didn't mean that I gave him the keys to our car, because I knew he had a tendency to drink and drive. But it did change how I talked to him about it. And it did change how I started to control things. I was able to back off and allow God to work in that situation. Allow God to protect Chris. Allow God to protect my daughter. And so that started to change things because Chris then realized I was treating him differently. It was starting to open up a door that had never been opened before. So this forgiveness that I'm showering on him because I received it, now I'm able to give him a new label. I don't have to say you are unforgiven for everything you have ever done for me. Now at this point, I'm able to tell him, you know what, I love you so much, and I know that God created you for something greater, and I choose to forgive you. And with that forgiveness, it opened up a whole new thing for us. It opened up so much for our family that we might not have got to experience had I chosen to label him as unforgiving. So are you here today and maybe you've worn a label? Because I believe it starts with ourselves. That's where it happened for me. I had to first take off my label of unforgiven. And I had to understand that my God loves me. He didn't take time to create me for me to wear this label that was going to drag me down, that was going to hold me prisoner. He didn't tell me, carry this label for the little things that you have done or for the big things that you have done. And so when he showered me with that forgiveness, it changed everything for me. I received it. The servant in the story, did he receive that forgiveness of his debt? The magnitude of his debt was so much more than the one that he came to his servant for. So who am I to say that Chris's hurts and his disappointments on me were any greater than what I had done to anybody? So when I chose to say, God, I am done wearing this label and I don't want to wear it anymore because I know that yes, I am going to make mistakes and yes, I am going to hurt my friends and I'm going to hurt my family and I won't intend to, but it'll happen because I am a flawed human. But even though I hurt them and even though I caused problems, I know that you created me out of love. I know that you created me with a purpose. And I know that you have said I am a forgiven child of the Most High God. And so that's the label that I choose to wear because I am forgiven. And now, instead of putting a label on somebody else, I'm able to say, you don't have to wear that label either. You get to pick up your label. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter who you've hurt. You can forgive yourself so that you can shower somebody else with that kind of forgiveness, and it changes everything. I want you to look to your person on your left, and I want you to tell them, I am forgiven. I am forgiven. And now I want you to look to the person on your right. And I want you to say, you are forgiven. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel good to know that the people around you aren't going to hold that label to you? And doesn't it feel good to know that you can say out loud, I'm forgiven. I don't have to wear that label anymore. Who I was is not who I'm going to be. Who I was and what I've done isn't who he created me to be. The things that I've done It isn't who I have to be, because my God loves me and He has created me for a reason. He has created me for a purpose, to be used by Him and for Him. And it is so exciting once we get to take off that label and walk in the labels that He wants to give to you, in the labels that He wants to share with you, because nobody can tell you who you are. Only the Father. And the reason that it is so important for us to want to know the Father more is because then we know ourselves more, and then we get to know Him more. And it's this beautiful relationship of back and forth of Him just telling you the reasons that He created you, the reasons that He wants you to do the things that He puts on your heart. So when we leave here today, I pray that we are not like the servant. I pray that we really receive the forgiveness of our Father who loves you, who loves me. Receive that love. Receive that forgiveness. Walk in that. And make a choice today that I'm going to accept it so that I can share it. We don't have to leave here and go and still give a label to somebody else. It's a choice we get to make. So I want to pray with you guys. And I thank you so much for listening to me share my story and share what I'm struggling with, what I'm going through. I love that you guys love me enough to share this with you.
Your name.